hosting this panel discussion on Is Music Theory Needed? I guess. It's going to be short and sweet. We're going to have a couple guests. Can we have Rick Beato up to the stage? Can we also have Samuraiguitarist up to the stage? Can we have, who else was on this? Michael, what's your last name? Oh boy. Palmasaro on the stage, and Andy Pitcher to the stage. Woo! Pew, pew, pew. So, the name of the talk is Music Theory Needed if you just want to play and write music? No. Okay, we're done. All right, we're done. All right, good. Okay, so I think we're just going to go around and just come up with a couple longer form responses to that. Maybe, Rick, you can start off on that. And feel free to be as contrarian as you'd like.
People ask me that all the time, you know, do you really need to know all these things, music theory-wise? And I say, well, of course not. You don't need to know them, but if you do know them, it's not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, you can, you use music theory. I was talking about this with Adam earlier. I always say music theory is just a way to talk about music without an instrument. When you have an instrument, you can just demonstrate it. But if you're talking about a C major chord, I say C major, you say, I don't know what that is. I say, oh, it's C, E, and G played together in any combination. Okay, well, that's music theory. It can be that simple, or it could be something much more complex than that. But it's just a way to discuss music, essentially.
I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Like tonight, we're about to play a bunch of tunes that, you know, maybe one person on the stage knows and the rest of us have to follow. And so we're talking to each other, say, what are we going to play? It's like, oh, well, that song, it's, you know, it's a chromatic walk up to B flat, minor 7, and then E flat 9. And so you just know that, all right, B flat Dorian, hang on the 6, and follow, look for the changes. If you can communicate that way, you just, you know, you don't have to solely rely on your ear. And I think when you do a lot of working, whether it's gigging or writing or whatever, if you can take educated guesses and remove a lot of just the guessing out of it, you'll land on your feet more often than not.
I mean, I guess there's not a ton to add to that. I think when people think of music theory, they think of just one simple thing, and they say, oh, well, Hendrix didn't know theory, or Wes Montgomery didn't know theory, but they had a theory, like some sort of theory. And while you might not necessarily need the traditional music theory, you need something to work from, or else you're just going in there blind and crossing your fingers and hoping it works.
Yeah, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree with that. And it's really interesting to see a lot of like really accomplished people talk about their own theories. Like Holdsworth has a pretty hilarious video series where he talks about all these things he's developed that make no sense. Yeah. But I do think a lot of those thoughts are kind of related to, is music theory important to perform, but not to write music. I feel like that's kind of different than is just as important to talk about, you know? But when you're in private, that doesn't really matter as much. You know, knowing like if you can communicate to someone else, it is useful later. But I think in the inception, it's important to have a way to maybe organize it. But I'm curious as to like thoughts on, I don't know, like, did you write music before you knew music theory? Like, for anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up Holdsworth, and Holdsworth is, you know, brilliant guitar player, and you would think from the music that he makes, he's the theory master of all masters, because he can master any sound and can solo over any sound and create masterful works of art on it. And he's the weirdest. I was talking to my buddy Evan Marion, and he talked about this instance where Alan Holdsworth came up with the master chord voicing. It's like, you can play any note over this chord. It's like, what is the chord? I don't know. It's the shape. It's the master voicing. And Evan wasn't able to like tell me what that voicing was in music theory terms, like in terms of like, is that a minor 7/11 or whatever? It's just a as long as you know the sound of it, and that's kind of like the thing, is theory is about assigning a name to a sound, and it helps to have a common lingua franca to like name things to sounds, but if you invent your own version of that, that's fine too.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I interviewed after Alan Holdsworth died, I interviewed some of the people from his band. I interviewed Gary Husband, who played drums with him on many of his records. And I asked Gary, he played on Alan's first solo record, IOU. He played on many of his records. And I said, so tell me about how you would rehearse when you'd learn a tune. Would Alan come in and say, here's how you play it? He said, yeah, he just would show you the parts on guitar. He wouldn't know if anything was in any odd time. He said, you just know that Alan would pause here and there'd be an extra beat. And he said that he would say to Alan, well, that section, that one bar is a 5/4 in 5/4 or something. Alan would say, oh, I don't know that. There's just a pause there. You just wait a little bit. And he said they would just do it by everything was done by memory. And Alan didn't really know. And then I asked Steve Hunt, who played keyboards with Alan on a bunch of his records. I asked him about how did Alan tell you what the chords were? He said, well, he just play them for me, and I would just have to listen to what he played and then figure out what it was. Then I asked Jeff Berlin about when he rehearsed for road games. He said, well, Alan would play it, and I'd just play a bass note that sounded good under it. And Alan would say, yeah, oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that. So obviously, and then the other thing about Wes Montgomery, Samurai said this about Wes Montgomery. I hear that all the time. Well, Wes Montgomery didn't know theory or he didn't know how to read. Wes Montgomery, there's a video of Wes Montgomery on YouTube. I was talking with Alan, with Adam last night about it. There's a video of him explaining, he's playing with this trio in 1965 in Amsterdam, Pim Jacobs trio, piano trio, and he's explaining to the pianist the chord changes to, what song was it? I can't remember. Wes couldn't even remember the name of the song, but he said, oh, it starts in E flat, starts in F minor 7, and he goes for 5 minutes, goes over the entire chord progression, and there's a lot of changes, a lot of 2-5-1s. He stops them after they stop playing. He goes, oh, actually, no, there's these other, you need to go here and here and here, and he knew all the chord changes that they played over. So that's the idea that people, guitar players, that they don't know how to read or whatever. You can know a lot about music theory and not know how to read a note. And Wes Montgomery absolutely knew all the chords that he was playing over. So,
Yeah, there was what? Oh yeah, what happened? I was giving a talk in Norway. It was about rhythm and language. And there was a traditional Norwegian musician, and he was like basically a guy who was studying traditional Norwegian music. I know nothing about traditional Norwegian music, maybe you guys do, but I don't. But he was trying to explain how he was feeling at the beat, and he was like tapping it out, and it was like kind of the Balkan thing, where it was like short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, which we would think of as like, oh, that's 5/8. 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. But no, for him it was short long, and that's the traditional way of feeling it. And it's a way of communicating among people who are of similar mindset within a particular community. So if Alan Holdsworth speaks a certain language to his musicians, oh yeah, you just pause right here, and if people can understand it, there's really no.
that is music theory, though.
That's
That's
what
his
it is.
theory.
That is. It's his music theory. Yeah, that's cool. Any other points on? So I guess you need to have a way of communicating stuff. All right, we settled it.
It helps.
The chord progression thing was, I think, one of the most important. When you talked about chord progressions, because that's people really communicate. Nashville is a great example. When you go into a songwriting session in Nashville, or to a demo session after you've written songs, they typically will do 4 3-hour sessions with a particular set of songwriters. They go in, the leader of the session is the one in charge of transcribing the tune. They play the demo. They will write out what the chord progression is in the Nashville numbering system, which is just Roman numerals essentially. And all the players play off that. They know it's easy because it's 4-1-6-5 or 4-1-5-6 or
There's twos in
1,
there sometimes.
4, 6,
Yeah,
5.
there's other numbers. We got 7 numbers to choose from.
So yeah, that whole entire. I mean, you need to know what chords are in what keys if you live in Nashville and you want to play sessions.
The only thing that I'll add to that is just the only thing I'll add to that is just having just some basic cheats or just things that you always remember when you have to learn a lot of songs if you're in a working band and knowing just some basic music theory. So if you're trying to figure out a song, you figure out what key it's in. The bass line goes to the 7. Chances are it's the 3rd or the 5 chord. Start there. Little things like that. Or like when, for example, I'm working with a female singer right now, and she sends me voice messages, and I have to put chords to it. Well, chances are when she lands on the 9, I'm thinking that's the 5th or the 5 chord. Little things like that, that if you just get accustomed to making those little mental connections, you just make all the steps shorter.
Next question.
All right, we answered it. Music theory is useful. Who knew? I mean, I guess the answer is like it's a way of communicating to the other musicians, and so it makes things way easier, and it's just, yeah. All right, cool. So I took some questions from Instagram for the rest of this panel. I promise we'll be short. The top question was, do you exclaim anything when you hear the 4th, the 5th, the minor fall, and the major lift? It's my favorite question.
I compose myself usually and say hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So we don't have any questions yet from the live stream, so I'm just going to keep asking snarky questions from my Instagram. If I didn't go to Berkeley, can I still know music? Okay.
Definitely not.
You got it, yeah. Okay, so here's a slightly less snarky question. What makes music sound magical? Question mark. And I think that also like, yeah. Here, Rick, answer everything. Too much. Yeah, and I think that's actually speaks to a deeper anxiety also of like the idea that when you learn more about theory, when you learn more about what's going on behind the scenes in a piece of music, it loses its magic. And I think if I can editorialize a little bit, I've never known a scientist to not see the mystery and excitement in nature, and that's one of the fun things about like following scientists on Twitter. I fully recommend you do this because they are the most excitable human beings on the planet, and they'll get so nerdily excited about the dumbest things, and it's so fantastic. And I feed off of that energy because that makes me feel so much more excited about what it is I do, even though it has nothing to do with music on that literal level. And they know things about the world in such an atomistic, like, very serious detail. And the mystery hasn't left because they know more things. The more they know things, the more they know that they don't know. And so the general circle expands, and they're in here in the knowledge that they know, and then they see more and more of what they don't know. And I think that's the exciting thing about music, is because we know that we don't know more and more. So I'm going to leave that question off to you guys. What makes music sound magical?
Well, my first reaction was like, oh, I guess harmony, like resolution is just like, whoa, yeah, that's exciting. But also like how much just percussion-based music that I've heard in my life that is just amazing, or just like noise that's like cathartic, I guess it is kind of tension release always. That is always nice because you don't always get that in life. But if you can experience that in like a 4-minute song, or it's just, then what about pop songs? I don't know. Yeah, magic. Yeah, magic makes music magical. That's my hard answer.
Cool. Rick.
Need more time?
Oh, I can bullshit for longer. Shall we?
I think that the magic is that people can feel something just from listening to sounds that are organized in a certain way. That's the real magic. That everybody here is here because they're all musicians, and music means something different to everyone in here. I like really weird music. I like really simple music too.
Can you put that on my gravestone? I like weird music. I like simple music.
Well,
too.
I'll make a video. I make videos. I'll make a video where I'll talk about a very simple song, a pop song, and then people said, "How do you like that? Oh my God, I can't believe you like that song." Then I'll make a video on something really esoteric that I really like, and then there's like, "How do you like that?" And I say, well, we're not the same people. Everybody has different things that music, the way it's organized, means to them. We all hear with different ears, with different brains, with different experiences. And for me, the magic is, a lot of people will ask me, if you know what's going on in music, doesn't it ruin it? How do you ever listen to something without analyzing it? And I say, well, I don't analyze music unless I am analyzing music. Otherwise, I just listen to it just like anybody else. So that's the magic there, is that you can just, you can be able to analyze any piece of music and still just listen to it and enjoy it and not even think at all about what goes into it. I don't think about, people ask me about production. I never listen to a record and think, oh, that's terrible production. Well, that's not true. I do that all the time. No, seriously. I honestly, there's a lot of records that have horrendously bad production. If I were to be honest about it, if somebody were to say, okay, really, do you think this is good production? I mean, famous records that when you think about it, it's like, well, come on, the guitars are out of tune. And like there's this, I love Exile on Main Street, and there's a song that Keith Richards sings called Happy. Happy is this great, great song. Are the guitars in tune? No.
Because I'm happy.
Is the bass in tune? Not really. Keith Richards, is he in tune when he sings? Not that in tune. But man, is it good.
The magic's there.
It's so good. How do you not love it? If you don't know Happy, if you don't know Exile on Main Street, check it out. It's great.
You're done? Nothing? Yeah. I think I would just echo what Rick's saying is there's an emotional connection. And I think when you first listen to it, you don't listen to it and you're not thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? Why is this so great? You listen to it and you just say, this is great. And for me, at least, that doesn't change no matter what kind of music I'm listening to. I get that same feeling when I listen to that 5 seconds of Summer song, the one where it's like, she looks so perfect standing there with an American Apparel underwear, whatever. I remember listening to that song, I'm like, I feel like I'm 13 again, listening to Blink-182 for the first time. This is an incredible feeling. And then once that wears off, and I start asking myself, why do I feel this way? What is it about this song that brings in those emotions? And it's the same thing when I listen to a great jazz solo. At first, I just hear that, and I love this. It emotionally connects with me, and I don't know why. But then I ask myself, okay, well, what's so cool about this? And maybe I analyze the solo, and I see some melodic ideas and stuff like that. But what really makes it magical was the first thing that just said, this is so cool. That connection, that emotional connection. And then deconstructing that magic is great, and then you can take that and try to incorporate it in your own music. But to me, the magic is truly in that thing when you hear something, you don't know why it's great at first, but for whatever reason, it's magic and it's amazing. Next question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You got it, bud.
Actually, these just look like the most comfortable chairs in the place. So I'm going to sit here. I just want to say that music is magic. And when you listen to music, you time travel. You hear a song, it reminds you of your first kiss. You hear a song, it reminds you of your first, baseball game. Your first everything. So, and there's something about that piece of music that is unexplainable, but it's magic. And that's what I think. Like, for me, I've been honored and blessed to jam with some of my heroes. So if I get to play Stranglehold with Derek St. Holmes at a blues bar in Nashville, when he starts singing, I'm immediately 11 years old in my dad's basement dropping the needle on double-edged gonzo. And that's what music does.
Hell yeah. Michael? Yeah, it's great. I talked to a bunch of these kids at NYU, these like really smart, smart-ass kids at NYU who are like studying jazz, and we were like checking out this New York Gypsy All-Stars band, and they were playing this crazy burnin' gypsy tune in like 11, and everybody's like geeking out about how it's all in 11. Yeah, man, it's like 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. Yeah. And then I played them Ivo Papazov and the Ivo Papazov's wedding band, and is this crazy Bulgarian guy who plays in the most insane time signatures, and like the clarinet's going crazy so fast that nobody could really understand what time signature was happening. And they were like, "Oh, we're not as smart as we think we are. Oh no." And then I started playing them some like crazy atonal, microtonal, Easley Blackwood etudes, and all of a sudden they had no idea what they were hearing. And I love that moment because I have no idea what's going on in the microtonal etudes, because you just have to listen to the music for what it is. You can't analyze it, and you have to let it go through you. Because when you're at a certain age, you want to know things. You want to know things about the song. You want to like prove that you know a lot of things. And eventually you kind of stop that. And that's a magical moment when you stop that and just listen to music for what it is and let it affect you. And that for me is like what music is like letting it affect you. And we're so scared of letting music affect us a lot of the time. I am, at least. And when it happens, and when I let it happen, that's such a cool moment. Cool moment. Yeah. No more questions yet from the live stream, but I'm going to share more snarky questions from my Instagram. So, if you can't sing it, you can't hurt it, ? If you can't sing it, you can't hurt it.
Okay, I have a response to that. Can you sing a Bach fugue? Well, of course you can't. You can't sing 4 parts at once. So does that mean that Bach didn't hear it? I mean, it's actually an absurd thing. People that limit what they play by what they can sing, you would have an incredibly limited range of music. The piano goes from A0 to C8. You can't sing, no one in this room can sing the entire range. Yet there are orchestral pieces that use, what's that?
Or 2 notes at a time. I'm going to try it.
Or 2 notes at a time. You can't sing a 4-part fugue. So it's an idiotic argument. I'm just kidding.
Rick is referencing the oft-used, I guess, teachers will tell you have to sing your solos all the time. That's like a really old school jazz mentality. It's like
you should be able to sing your solos. I'm not saying that, actually. No, it's good to be able to audiate and right, Adam.
Audiation is very important.
Audiation is very important.
Hear what it is you're going to play. That's cool. Yeah.
So, but the idea that you have to be able to everything you play, you have to be able to sing is ridiculous.
If you can't, what was it?
just move on from that one.
No, it's such a good question. There's so many things we could talk about with that one. If you can't hurt it. All right, here's a good one. Since there's no questions. All right, come on. We need some actual questions from the chat. All right, this might be where we end this discussion. Is 4.676767/2.585858 a possible time signature?
Yes.
All right, cool. We're done. All right, I think this has been our music theory music theory live stream. If there aren't any more questions, I think we adequately answered the question, which was, is music theory necessary in order to play music?
Adam, why don't you open it
Oh yeah, let's actually get some. Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, question?
Do you ever not look under the covers of a song that you really like because you don't want to know the magic? Like you're saying, no, never. I had a TLC kick last year, and I just have not wanted to investigate what about them makes my brain feel so good. They're so good, and I just accept it.
TLC from like the early 2000s?
TLC, 94 they started, but yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's tons of music that I love that I've never analyzed.
Because you don't want to.
Oh, because I purposely don't want to find out? No.
Yeah, just.
Feel more secure
Well, and I never got around to it. Like, most of the time, I just never got around to it. And then, but that's the cool thing is like when you then go back and check out what's actually happening. Like, there's a bass solo in Bulls and Parade, and I'd never actually made that connection. Like, he's like doing a thing, and I never heard that until I just went and tried to learn it. I'm like, that's cool. I go back and listen to all these tunes that I like. In the one chord in Crawling by Linkin Park is a 1 major. It's like 1 major, flat 6, flat 3, flat 7. I never knew that, and that's cool. That's a modal interchange from the parallel major. Oh, that's cool. And then I made that connection later in life, but that was music that like really was connected with me when I was a kid. And yeah, it's exciting to like relearn things about stuff that you dug. Does anybody have any comments on this in the audience? On theory and does it matter? All right, go for it.
I'd actually like to kind of chime in on what you said there, Andy. I've found it more magical sometimes when I tap into it and figure it out. Like I can think of songs, and I remember listening to certain songs, and maybe it's more lyrical stuff or whatever. I remember just like hearing certain lyrics, and I'm like, I don't know why this is so good. I need to figure out why. And I just think about it, and then you see these little patterns, and you see these really cool things that you don't normally pick up at first. And to me, that even makes it more magical that someone was able to come up with that and fit it in a song and make it sound so good. And that's, I don't know, I enjoy that a lot. Like one song that comes to mind, and I don't love a lot of mainstream country music, but there's a song called I Drive Your Truck by Lee Brice. And I remember listening to that song, and I'm like, okay, truck, another song about a truck, here we go. But I remember listening, I'm like, why do I like this so much? And it clicked that they're telling a story about such a cliched idea, this idea of a truck in country music, but they're presenting it in a way that hasn't been done before, and then just like slight little lyrical twists and tricks, and that's why it's so good. And when I figured that out, I was like, oh, this isn't just a song about a truck. This is doing something that makes it even more magical.
The song I Love You by Cole Porter was written specifically on a challenge to see how many times you could say I love you in a song without it feeling cliche. And the brilliant part about it, and this is one of the only things that you can do by analyzing it, is the phrase I love you is always on a descending major seventh. And that's a very difficult thing to sing. I'm not going to try and sing it, but it's always on a descending major seventh, and it's a song about how hard it is to say the words I love you. And it's always on a descending major seventh. So I mean, that's the thing, is like you can only figure out these things if you go in and try and analyze them. And once you make that connection, it's like, oh, that's cool. What else can I learn about this stuff? And every cool song has a little thing. No matter how simple or how complicated, there is a reason why it is so affecting. And that it can be magical to not know, but for me, the magic is in the discovery of those things. And then it becomes, oh, that's such a cool thing. I want to learn more about that thing. Yeah, so.
I got one interesting thought to you. Like, it would be interesting to know if it always happens on purpose. You know, that what other people analyze, the artist or whoever wrote it, did they do this on purpose, or did it just happen and you find out and then it's like, oh my God, it's so good and they didn't even know?
I mean, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a good thing to think about.
Yeah, I think, personally speaking, for when I'm playing music or writing music, so many things that I do are an accident.
Right, and other people go like, wow, you did.
And they're like, that's brilliant. Like, I mean, sometimes I'll write a lyric and it means something to me. I find my favorite lyrics are interpretive. Means something to one person and then something else to somebody else. Which is, I think, another beautiful thing about music and another beautiful thing about creating. And when I do clinics and stuff and people want to know about songwriting, I'm like, everything's been said. Every melody's been sung, every chord progression's been played. It's saying it a different way that a lot of people find success with. And I think it's a lot of, I mean, it's what it means to you. Like, I love, somebody got my lyric wrong, and I liked it better than what I wrote. So I've been singing that ever since.
That's
true, I swear. I mean, that's the thing about beauty, the beauty of music, because sometimes you can't make out a lyric, so you think it's something else, and then sometimes it's even better than what it is. So that's an accident too. But musically speaking, like, even I was talking to Pete Thorne today, and he was like, how did you come up with that? And I go, fucking accident. I was just wanting to end the riff a certain way, and it went like this, and I've been doing like that ever since. And that's again, you know, as a musician, as a guitar player, it's just, sometimes it just happens. And I totally get that, and I love that about music too.
Yeah, I mean, well, the idea of like, it kind of doesn't matter if it was intended or not, because it's there, and then people will be affected by it whether or not somebody was consciously thinking of doing one thing or another. I think that's, yeah.
When I'm making a video about something, you know, I made a video on a Nirvana song a few weeks ago, and I preemptively say this in the video. Now, people are going to ask me, do you think Kurt Cobain knew that he was singing the sharp 11 here? No, he didn't know, but I know, and now you know. And it doesn't matter if it sounds good to his ear. His ear could hear these things, but that's actually not the point. I was thinking about what you were just saying. I worked in a session one time. A guy was producing. He's very famous. I can't say his name. He's in a huge band. We were in the studio out in L.A., and the engineer that was there, assistant engineer, was a huge fan of his band. So they had done this jam, and I basically put together a song from a bunch of parts of a jam. And then this singer sang kind of scattered lyrics, and then he went to the assistant engineer. I want you to write down what you think I sang, and those were the lyrics of the song. And it was it was just gibberish, but this guy was so into it, this assistant engineer, which he probably didn't get credit for the lyrics, I can't remember. But like, I want you to write down what you think I sang. Those were literally the lyrics. I don't know.
He does that.
Does he?
Yeah, I've heard Bono will just like scat songs and just like see what feels natural.
Most people actually do.
Yeah,
And then just like puts
that's a
in
common
and says,
way,
"Oh,
yeah.
I use these syllables here. Now I need to figure out some consonants to put on them."
Coming up with lyrics, not somebody singing the
Yeah.
Or like studio, right?
Yes, I'll add something to this. I think it really just comes down to, as a musician, if you play it safe all the time, or if you have a commitment to being unpredictable and going for it, and see if you come up with something really good that you otherwise wouldn't. And I think that most of us, you know, the longer we play, the more comfortable we are with taking chances, and the more you do that, the more you land on your feet and play stuff that you otherwise wouldn't. And so I think it's just a commitment, you know, to being aggressive that way.
I have a question from Jamie Lewis, who is right there, and he just wrote in on the thing. So Jamie asks, do you think music theory should be taught before you learn how to play your instrument, during, or after you can play?
At the same time.
At the same time, would be nice, or not. It'd be nice to pick it up.
Yeah, or no.
Yeah.
And you can start learning and appreciating music a long time before. And if you start learning theory too soon, maybe it can stop you from.
Well, I mean, I would say that would just be a matter of the teacher and how you learn it too, because most of the time the way that theory is taught is kind of like a rule book, like these are the things that you must memorize and blah 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 blah, rather than being an integrated part of a whole. Like, this is what you're playing, this is what you're listening to. What is that thing? That's the sharp 11. What is that? And now you have an application for that. Most of the time, that's not how theory is taught. And I mean, it certainly would help to learn it concurrently with the music, because it's about music. It'd be like learning the grammar of a language without speaking the language. That would be a little strange, but possible, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
When my son has a pretty good ear for music, and when he was a little kid, I realized he has perfect pitch, and I realized that he had this, and so after I taught him the names of the notes in 5 minutes, it literally took that long because he had it already, even though he didn't know the names of the notes. So I said, "This is Star Wars note is B flat, Superman note is G." So he's like, "Okay, I got this." So then the next week, I started playing. "Oh, can you hear 2 notes at once?" "Yeah." "No, how about 3 notes? How about 4 notes?" "Yeah." So I said, "Okay, so this chord here is G minor, it's called, G, B flat, D, okay? All right, got that. C major, C, E, G. C augmented, C, E, G sharp. And I just started telling him chords like that. F suspended is F, B flat, C. Okay, I got that. And so anytime he heard something then, his brain just said, okay, I hear those notes. That collection of notes is called this. I said, it doesn't matter what order it is. And it doesn't have to be complex, the music theory. It's just like, these are what the chord names are. They're just like words. You know, like some have four letters, some have 3 letters, some have 8 letters. And if you teach kids these things, they can understand them. Kids can actually remember these things. You don't overwhelm them, but you just kind of gradually teach them these things as they're learning. And then it becomes like a language in that way, I think, personally.
Was your son also learning an instrument, or were you only teaching him these tools?
I let him improvise on the piano. He would improvise and we'd listen to it, and that was it. He had no technique or anything. He wasn't taking any lessons, but he would play on the piano all the time. And that was it. But I encouraged him to improvise. I think that's the best way for kids to learn, is just to let them sit down and see wherever their fingers go or wherever their ears take them. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to stifle kids' creativity by getting, I think, really structured lessons. For the most part, turns kids off to music early on. And everybody here probably took piano lessons and quit when they were kids, you know. I didn't, but
I'm Rick Beato.
I didn't get piano lessons. We didn't even own a piano. We got a piano my parents bought a piano the day I went to college, and my brother was the only one, and we had 7 kids, and they couldn't afford a piano, you know. So he learned how to play the piano.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really great conversation that we're having about theory, and when you start introducing theory, because I come from the Victor Wooten school in the world where music is a language, so you start talking instead of learning how to say certain things. So that's why when you're a kid, you get to name things whatever you want to name them. You get to name your bottle Baba. Nobody says no, say bottle. Right now. It's not what it is.
That is great advice.
You know? So we give them that freedom to express, because that's what music really is. And we're sitting here talking about theory and analyzing it. But I think sometimes we forget that we're fans of the feeling and fans of the music. And we get so bogged down with this analyzation of everything that we forget to feel and to dance and to just be in the moment and really enjoy the music for the reason why you got into it in the first place, and it was because of the love of the sounds. So sometimes I think we get a little bit, and it's great to explore and dig deep and figure out the why, but don't forget the feeling. And I think that sometimes those two things start to fight. You know, those two things start to rub, the knowing and the feeling. So you don't allow what you know to make you feel something. So you say that sharp 11 that my man was singing, so what? You know that's a sharp 11, but still, does it still make you feel good inside? Does it make you feel good to hit that note? You know what I mean? So I just think it's something to think about.
Oh. So Victor Wooten, huge influence, by the way. Thank you for saying that. I'm a big fan. There's the four methods of knowing, and I think this is borrowed from a Persian poet. Unknown, unknowing, known, unknowing, known, knowing, unknown, knowing. Basically, the 4 stages of learning something. Unknown, unknowing is not knowing anything. Basically, being completely intellectually naive about something. Basically, that's free play. That's when you're a child and don't know that you don't know anything. Unknown or known, unknowing. When you know you don't know things, and that's like a really terrible spot to be in because you feel inferior to other people. And then you feel like an urge to learn stuff. Then there's known knowing, when you know a lot of things, and you know that you know a lot of things. And finally, unknown knowing, when you know a lot of things, but you don't even care, and it doesn't even matter anymore. And that's considered like enlightenment. I love those four stages of learning. Unfortunately, that has been translated into Donald Rumsfeld's known unknowns, known knowns, and unknown unknowns, which was used to justify the Iraq War. So that whole Persian four truth thing has been slightly tainted over the years, but I still hold on to that very dearly as something to strive for. And I also hold, there's two artists that I feel like represent the opposite extremes, and they're John Coltrane, who is unknown knowing, and Stan Getz, who is unknown unknowing. Stan Getz didn't know any theory, and he played purely by ear, and he had the most lovely tenor saxophone sound of all time. John Coltrane knew everything there ever was to know about everything, and in the end, it didn't even matter because he took it into outer space with his later records. And I think that's just a beautiful pairing of two people who really cared, and they both made it to the point where they didn't know anything. So that's my yeah, that's what we want.
There you go.
All right, I think that's a good place to end. Thank you for this panel, everybody. All right. All right, now we got a jam, I think.